Oh my god, my computer today is slow. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Katie said 3.5 would have been higher if Jack was more emotionally attractive. Yeah,
Fair.
fair enough, fair enough. I thought it was interesting that we kept saying there's gonna be a baby popping out soon. And what do we get?
That
Lori's
person,
gonna get pregnant.
I felt like, oh no, she's gonna be like trapped in a way, like it's gonna be so much more complicated if she's.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right though. Something was just always off. And
Yep.
Oscar was definitely more of like, I make the choices, so you do what I say. I didn't like that.
It was more traditionalist at the end.
Yeah.
I had a pleasure reading like both halves kind of close together, which I liked. I read like a few chapters from the second portion to help refresh my brain, and then I just like read everything yesterday, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so intense." I had
Mhm.
to keep little breaks because I'm like keep like I kept getting shocked. I did
Mhm.
little things, and my mind was just spinning with all the possibilities. So I think that's why I liked it because I felt like with the different characters, there was a lot to predict, and you couldn't be sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But Oscar, yeah, he definitely is another character that was disappointing, and his mom as well, and the whole thing with Cressida and the water spillage. I'm like, yeah, you need to like back up your lady. Like clearly she is just waiting, waiting in the eaves to swoop in like a little bat.
Yeah, and that section is when I started getting kind of like an ick of like Oscar is just not it.
Yeah.
And even though it was small, she was like, "You're not gonna believe your wife, you're gonna believe her." And he still said, "Well, she was drenched." And I'm like, "Are you no,
Yeah.
boy, bye."
The part that got me too about that part was he was like, well, it would be plausible. And I'm like, oh, you feel guilty about something. That's why you're like, oh, it would make sense. Like if Lori found out something and then she spilled out water on Cressida. So I'm like, oh, he's hiding something.
I thought they had hooked up for sure. I was like, it's coming," and never.
Yeah.
Mhm. How did you guys
Yeah, I
like the
think
ending? Oh, go ahead, Julie.
I think it's just sad that like I don't know, I felt like definitely at the wedding or like the whole thing with Sarah and like I think she was having doubts, you know, like at the wedding and then she went on a while after and then just the whole like what if Jack got on the bus, you know.
Mhm.
But then like yeah, at the end Lori's kind of like, "Oh, well, that would have been like boring." So she kind of has a good attitude about it.
Yeah.
I
And
like
yeah,
that. I'll go for it, sorry.
and I agree with Karina how like we kind of knew like she was probably going to end up with Jack and like
Mhm.
the marriage was probably not going to work out and
Mhm.
but like the author did the twist in a way like we didn't know how it would happen, so that kept it
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure he cheated. And I mean, even Lori was like, at some point, Cressida's gonna come back into his life and they're gonna end up together. It just seems like that's what they're meant to, they're meant to be together, which is kind of sad. But maybe
Yeah.
there's just people who are just you can tell that they have to be together or they have like this like chemistry. Like who was saying it? Or like the girl who was also separated at the bar. And she was like, "Oh yeah, 9 months ago, my ex-husband now went with what was it, the neighbor because they like saw each other over a community garden." I thought that was, I don't know, interesting. But maybe there's that connection that you just can't prevent. Just
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think with Oscar and Lori, it was also like the socio like economic and like like society like divide. I think it was kind of even though she didn't go on about it a lot in the novel, I feel like the mother-in-law kind of did have like a bad influence on them. And now that I think about it more, now that we know how it's been resolved with Oscar and Cressida, since the mom always had the picture on the piano, it's probably like it was foreshadowing, like that was a little clue. Um, so yeah, I just think that was another thing that maybe made it not meant to be, just because they were so different, and he expected her to drop everything and just move to Brussels. That was too dramatic.
But then she'll move to Edinburgh and then she's like, oh yeah, I can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I can do school anywhere. But like I think they're just trying to make the point like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
wouldn't do it for Oscar.
That's the thing too, where it's like, I mean, she did travel and go there, right? And
Mhm.
I don't really know how far away each of those places are, but I feel like when it comes to the right person, you'll do it, you know?
I think I'd
Everybody.
closer though, but I'll check. I'm curious now.
Watch Brussels. It is Brussels sprout.
Brussels
Brussels.
sprouts.
Brussels.
Is
Brussels.
that where Brussels sprouts come from?
I don't know, but
We need to
my brain was
research.
thinking of that.
I feel like
Imagine
it
Brussels
seems
is
like
closer. That'd be hilarious.
it seems like Brussels you had to fly and like Edinburgh you could take a train, but it seemed to take many hours.
Edinburgh is still in the UK actually, it seems. So still same country. But so I'm just gonna see if this shows up. Wait, let me unblur my background. I'm in the office today, so Pico has a big mess.
Oh, Brussels is far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So London's the red dot in the middle. This one's Edinburgh, and then
But wait,
right
he's in London?
here. Yeah, he's not even out of the same country. I thought it was in Scotland or something.
But like look how close to London and Brussels is than London and Edinburgh,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, because she took the train there, right?
Yeah. It has to be the right person.
That makes sense.
Damn.
I feel like Jack got away with a lot though, and he got like what he wanted at the end, which I'm glad, it was a happy ending, but I feel like I agree with what Katie said, that he was not being very good. I would have almost been happy if like Laurie ended up with no one and just got another fresh start, like when, she kind of broke up with Jack the first time.
Yeah. I felt like the book could have gone that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was that possibility. It wasn't like a complete like no, she's ending up with Jack for sure, for sure. Um, which it would have been nice if she ended up by herself and the
Uh,
career she wanted, and she's like, I'm not moving for anybody. But I think it's just meant to be.
yeah. I do like how it kind of came around full circle, where it started off at the beginning, them seeing each other and then they ended up together.
Um, the part where he said that he felt like Hugh Grant, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie I mentioned before. I think it was Notting Hill. It
Oh no.
literally was referencing that. Because let me see. I think it was called Notting Hill. So in the end, um, so Hugh Grant is one of the main characters. He's the bookstore guy. And then Julia Roberts was like this famous actress, and they seem to have a thing. Somehow she was at his bookstore, and they kind of had, they had this connection, but because she was famous, it just didn't work out or something like that. But then in the end, she's doing this press release or something in I think London, and he goes up there and he's pretending to be one of the press people asking her a question, and it like kind of falls where everyone's like, oh my gosh, who was this mysterious man that you saw in like a few months ago, like who was your love interest? And then they start realizing that that's him asking the question, like the same way that this story kind of did it, where they're like, oh, who is Rona, which I thought was funny because coronavirus.
He must have done that on purpose, yeah.
They're like, oh, who is Rona? And then they're like, oh my gosh. And then like she shows up the same way like in this movie. And I was like, wow, I think that was kind of perfect that I watched it. And then it came out in that book.
Ooh, I'm gonna watch it soon then because I have
Yeah,
some friends.
it's cute. Julia Roberts seems like a little bee because she's an actress and she can be like a little diva. But in
I
the
love
end, it's really cute. You'll see
Yeah,
the reference for sure.
cool. Yeah, I thought it was funny too the way it happened at the end. And I think just because I don't necessarily like Jack the most out of all the characters, but I thought it was funny the way like Laurie ended up coming to him was like almost helping him with his career too, because he was getting like, a lot of buzz about it. So I'm like, that's interesting. Like I think it's, unique the way it happened for sure. But I guess I didn't like how it seemed like something that could help bolster his career, or something he'll get famous for, when he was kind
Mhm.
of like the one that was kind of, I think he dropped the ball a lot of times, So I'm like, oh my gosh, you're even getting a secret reward within this reward of getting like the person you love.
Yeah, I guess I could see where like Katie mentioned that he wasn't as emotionally invested.
Mhm.
Because I feel like he didn't really quite try as hard as you would want for you to be like, or for the reader to be like, hey, I'm rooting for them. Like they must end up together because look at him trying and it's not working out. Or look at her just like, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But that did make it more unique too, I guess. It's different than other romance novels.
Instead
This,
of a little cliche, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think my favorite part was how her and Sarah like became friends again, and how slowly they like forgave each other for everything, and Sarah was like supportive of her and Jack. I think that was like a really special relationship.
Hmm. I don't think many would do that. So I think that shows how great like their bond was, even though obviously it's like the same man they both kind of liked. Um, like you can get past that.
Hmm.
You don't have to let a man break up your friendship. You
I did.
shouldn't let a man break up your friendship.
Yep, for sure. Snaps to that. And I guess in a way for them all to have their happy ending, everything had to happen like it did, because Sarah wouldn't have met Luke either if Jack didn't get into his accident. So it's
And
interesting.
then Jack actually liked Luke,
Hmm.
right? He's like, oh, he's one of my favorite Aussies. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Getting
Yeah,
past that, initial tension and being like, okay, fine. It is what it is, and we have to be civil. And then you actually like each other and it's fine.
did either of you think that Oscar kind of knew? Because I think Oscar was kind of dense to wait until, Laurie's dad's funeral to be like, oh, are your feelings for my wife purely platonic? I'm like, I feel like someone else would have picked up on it too. I'm surprised
Mhm.
that either he or Sarah didn't like notice more back then when they were all interacting a little bit more, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they were just like in their own world or something too. But I thought it was interesting that Oscar brought it up at that time. Maybe he didn't have an opportunity to talk to Jacqueline before, or maybe it was because of the wedding speech, but I don't know. I feel like Jack was kind of being so passive aggressive at times.
I think the wedding speech was like the main like catalyst for Oscar to be like, wait,
Yeah.
this is a little too deep. And maybe it just stayed in the back of his mind the whole time.
Hmm. Oh, that makes more sense. And then he wasn't around to ask.
Yeah. Because I think right after the wedding, right, he moved.
I think so.
I think. So it's probably, or maybe he thought it out, but I feel like maybe it was just like
I think it was before it was after she bought the dress.
he
Hmm.
left, right?
Yeah, so he had to like come back into
Come back
town
for the
for the
wedding.
wedding.
Yeah. And that's when he brought
Yeah.
someone, right? Amanda?
Verity. Verity.
Verity. Oh, that's right. I
You.
can't,
He
this guy
brought
has so many
Amanda.
girls.
I know. He brought Amanda to Sarah's going away party.
Yeah.
And then Amanda, like the whole forcing him to propose, like when they're drinking at the pub, was so awkward.
If you're not gonna do it now, you're never gonna do it because you don't love me. Imagine you're seeing that. You just,
And a boy would be like,
oh, pulls out my phone.
I know, I was gonna say, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, well, I feel like it was a lot of intense emotional scenes like spread out throughout the two halves of the book. Um, Let me see what else I put little flags in.
I feel like he was just because even with Amanda, he didn't really show a lot of emotion. He was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of there for like, oh, I'll keep like hooking up with you or I'll keep being with you just to like pleasure me in these, like, so I'm not alone. Um,
Mhm.
I feel like because he was holding out for those emotions for uh Lori.
Oh, that makes sense. Like he had to turn everything off, so then it was off for everyone. Like
Mm-hmm.
potential other,
Like
partner.
I have these feelings for her, but I can't show them, or like she's married, or he thought that she was happily married. So he's like, I'm just gonna not necessarily go numb, but I'm just gonna not show my emotions, maybe.
Yeah. I was so scared when I thought she was pregnant because I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna complicate things for her so much.
Yeah. I was so glad she wasn't.
Yeah. I think the whole idea of them trying, I feel like it showed a little more of Oscar's true character too. Like he got a little more patronizing, like, oh, really wine or, really this. And I'm like, whoa, like I know it must be a process, but I thought it was unfair because he was the one that was like gone all the time too. So I'm just like, that would be a lot of pressure.
I don't know if you guys saw, but there's this TikTok where Michelle Obama was talking about like her relationship with Barack,
Hmm.
and that kind of like gives me a little bit of that because she was saying like, oh, when we were married, like everything was fine. He would go to like golfing or go to the gym. I had to do this, I had to do that. But once the kids came, that's when it became tough, where it's
Hmm.
um like you have to compromise and like do like a 50-50, but it's never a 50-50. So sometimes, like, let's say Barack went to the gym and she was like, you have time to go to the gym, you have time to do this, like you're not doing stuff for the kids, and it's like, oh shoot, I mean, I don't have kids, but I can't, like, imagine how tough it is to be
Yeah.
like, you're not doing your part, well, you're not doing your part. Yeah, so I'm glad they did not have kids because that would have just been sad for Lori.
I
She's
think
like,
she would have
"What?"
felt like obligated to try to go to Brussels and she wouldn't have liked it and it would be harder to like start over once,
Yeah.
she was up.
Yeah, there's no way he would have like let her keep working. Like she would have had to be like a stay-at-home mom, and she would have hated it.
Mhm. Yeah. I wonder if the mother-in-law would have changed a little bit if Lori was pregnant though, but I don't think so. I think she would have been like, oh, now my son's like more stuck.
I'm sure the divorce for her is just like, like socially embarrassing, like for the mom. But like clearly she doesn't like Lori, so
Mhm.
It almost reminds me of like Red, White, and Blue, where the royals were like, oh, like, we're gonna control the narrative and this is how it happens and we're hoity toity. So I wonder like if she just said like, oh, like she made something up, to make Lori look bad and then, oh, but now Oscar can move on or something. Who knows? Does your book have discussion questions in the back?
Uh,
no.
Mine does.
I think, oh my gosh, I just had mine. Oh, it's right here. Mine does too. They're probably the same.
Yeah. I saw that there's even like drink cocktail recommendations depending on what character you're most like. So I thought we might discuss this too. And
Oh
Oh
my god,
yeah.
that's so fun. What does it say?
Oh my,
or,
it says if
go
you're a Jack, beer,
ahead.
one beer, get a tall glass, preferably chilled, but any will do. Open your beer and pour it into the glass. Enjoy. So basic.
Let me see. If you're Oscar, penicillin, 2 ounces blended Scotch whiskey, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, 3/4 ounce honey ginger syrup, 1/4 ounce Islay single malt Scotch. Combine blended Scotch, lemon juice, and syrup in a cocktail shaker and add ice. Shake and strain into a rocks glass with fresh ice. Top with single malt Scotch, garnish with candied ginger. Fancy, fancy.
Mm. If you're Lori, oh, it's the Sex on the Parrot and Infested Beach. Half an ounce of gin, half an ounce of white tequila, half an ounce of light rum, half an ounce of vodka, 1 ounce of the blue, how do you say it? I say curacao, but I don't think that's what it is.
I think
4
it.
ounces of orange juice. Fill a hurricane glass with ice. Pour in the liquors and top off with orange juice. Garnish with a cocktail umbrella and colorful straw with optional cutout of a parrot attached. That's the drink they had, right?
The older lady when they took off the wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, but wasn't it blue? Oh yeah, that's that.
Curacao.
Yeah, yeah.
If You're a Sarah Holiday Party Punch from page 217 serves it reminds me of Jungle Juice, I think.
Yeah.
8 ounces dark rum, 8 ounces coconut rum, 8 ounces pineapple juice, 8 ounces orange juice, 4 ounces lime juice, splash of grenadine. Add ingredients to a punch bowl and stir. Top up the bowl with ice to chill. Serve in a teacup with an optional slice of orange slice for garnish.
That's
And then
cute.
it has the recipe for their little special sandwich too, which I think is really adorable.
Oh wow, there's a whole. See, I listened to the last section instead of reading it. There's a conversation with the author too.
There is. And then the reader's guide.
Stop. This girl is my girl. She said, "What was your inspiration for writing One Day in December?" I adore all of the romantic Christmas movies. Love Actually, The Holiday is my favorite. And I love The Holiday. And I'd throw the Bridget Jones Diary in there too, because who could forget the wonderful Nice Boys Don't Kiss Like That snowstorm scene at the end. My hope was to try to write a book that made readers feel the way watching those movies makes me feel: warm, swept away, and completely charmed. I've always been fascinated by the concept of love at first sight, so this became an opportunity to explore that, and also to think about what might happen if you miss a chance to act on that moment.
Oh, I can read the next one. Do we still have you, Julie?
Yes.
You had me in suspense.
I'm into it. I'm into it now.
Okay, good. All right. Love at first sight and fate are major themes, yet the characters make a lot of their own decisions regarding love. Could you talk about this balance between fate and choice? Author. The book certainly opens at a fateful moment, that shared look, barely a minute or two, but significant enough to impact both Jack and Lori's lives. I think they both battle against the feelings created in those few moments. Oh my God, this one's long. Particularly when they finally meet again under much different circumstances. By then, they don't have the luxury of allowing fate to dictate their actions. In fact, they both choose to do the exact opposite. This creates huge emotional drama and misunderstandings between them. They both want to do the right thing, even though the more they get to know each other, the fonder they become. Can their choices redirect their romantic fates? Well, yes, I think so. The book covers a 10-year span, and people naturally change as they mature, so what seemed inevitable to begin with might not be the right thing after all. They both fall in love with other people, and those romances all have the potential to become more defining than that one startling moment of connection that Lori and Jack shared. I felt it was important to see how Lori battled to love Jack in a platonic way, and how she actively chose to put physical distance between them by going to Thailand and creating new opportunities for herself. She wants to find a love of her own, and despite her experience with Jack, she doesn't close her heart to the possibility of finding someone new. I think that's what Oscar's purpose in the novel was.
Yeah.
He with someone new to kind of like put that time and distance between them. Oh, that was exciting to read.
The next one is long too. The novel follows 3 characters over the course of a decade, opening with 22-year-old Lori at a bus stop. Can you tell us about what it was like to write about characters as they grow over the formative period that is early adulthood? Did any challenges arise related to the novel's sweeping timeline? The author. I love writing these characters so much. It was a joy to write their formative, romantic years, but just as joyful to write about Sarah and Lori's deepening friendship. I really wanted the book to be as much about that as about their romances, about how friendship grows and changes shape over your 20s and 30s. They are defining years for most people, and it's no exception for Sarah and Lori. It was important to show them growing up and learning from their mistakes. Lori slowly realizes she's much stronger than she thought, and Sarah comes to understand what she really needs to be happy. Jack struggles the most to find his way. It's fair to say that he wanders a long way from the path he expected to take. But then that's often what happens in reality, isn't it? It's great to make plans and have ambitions, but sometimes unexpected things happen which make you reevaluate and change course. In some ways, it felt luxurious to have a decade to tell their story, but obviously it made choosing what to show more important too. We dip in and out of their lives across the years. One of the big challenges was to make sure it never felt pencil sketched in order to accommodate the time span.
That last bit, I think that's why I liked the book. Also, it's like I don't think we've read one where it's like this. Maybe one of the first ones, The Vanishing Half, was over such a long time, but I think this one like focused so much on a romantic relationship over 10 years, and I think that we
Yeah.
did get to know the characters more. And I did like that.
And I like how, yes, it was about like the love story or like that first look between Lori and Jack, but it also involved the whole Sarah and Lori's friendship and how it changed. And they like struggled, but then they got back together as Julie mentioned, and that's what happens in life. I've had that with my friends where we're like, we've been super close, and then there was a moment where we were like just not having it, and now we're kind of okay. But you have to like go through that and be like, do we continue to be friends or we don't? You know, it's kind of cool.
I think the book also talks about a lot of themes. So, like when you're reading that, it made me think like, okay, like there's the romantic one, the
Mhm.
girlfriend part, between Sarah and Lori, but then there's also like family angst. You know, you got to explore different family dynamics, like with Oscar and his mom. The other characters we don't really know that much, but there's also Lori and her family, but then also the subject of like grief for a parent, and
Yeah.
also the subject of just like pressure to have a baby for girls, you know, and then also like
Mhm.
just like struggling to find your career and the the vocation that you choose. I feel like those
Yeah.
are all really relevant. Um, so I think that's another reason why I liked it because I feel like even within the overarching plot, there seem to be a lot of different little subplots for each of the characters on their own, but then also like relating to each other. Should I read the next one?
Yeah.
Alrighty. The friendship between Laurie and Sarah is one of the richest, most complex relationships in the novel. Can you talk about how their friendship serves as a backbone to the story, despite the fact that they both fall for the same man? Author says, Laurie and Sarah's bond was lovely to write, and I'm very much drawn from the female friendship I'm fortunate enough to have in my own life. They're as close as sisters, which is especially poignant for Laurie as she lost her younger sister Jenny, also sibling grief, yeah. When she was just 8 years old, Laurie and Sarah met when they were thrown together as roommates in their university years, and their friendship is already very much established by the time the book opens. This means that when they accidentally fall for the same man, their friendship already has too much value to allow it to be derailed by romance. Laurie finds herself in an impossible situation. By deciding not to tell Sarah that Jack is her by then fabled boy from the bus stop, she places a lie at the center of the most precious friendship she has ever had, and we see her battle with the secret throughout the rest of the story. She has to find a way to live with the deceit without allowing it to make her feel like she's a bad person. It's terribly difficult for her. She never wants to have to choose between the two people she loves. Their friendship is tested to the limits at times, but then when the chips are really down for Laurie, Sarah is there for her in a heartbeat. That's the way they are. They are the gin to each other's tonic.
Oh, that's cute.
I really liked that one, yeah.
I don't like gin and tonic, but I get it.
It's like tequila and limes.
Tequila and salt.
Also that. I think that's what helps them too. Like they had been friends for so long and so much shared experience that like I think that if it was any like one who wasn't a best friend, then maybe they wouldn't have been able to come back from that.
Do you want to do them all?
There's a few more left.
Yeah.
We could read them or maybe look at some of the discussion questions.
Yeah.
What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, let's do some of the questions. The
I was like,
discussion ones.
we have lost Julie.
I'm glad you're still with us though. Also, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge my teapot that I got for Christmas. I have like a
That's so
whole
cute. I saw that. That's adorable.
I'm just gonna carry it around the house with me.
Okay, I think we went over some of the first ones because they were like the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, we didn't mention, but why do you think Jack doesn't admit to Lori that he remembers her from the bus stop?
I think he doesn't want to lose face, and he's like in an awkward situation too. not as awkward as Lori because he doesn't have as much emotional investment into Sarah in a way, but I think he doesn't want to like look bad.
Mhm. I also feel like during that time we did see Jack was really, or he was showing more emotion with Sarah. So that was like how they mentioned love at first sight, or like they literally didn't even know their names. They just saw each other. So I feel like for him to have such a big reaction, I think it just doesn't make sense. So I think that's what he didn't, you know? Like he's not gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you're the girl. I'm sorry, Sarah. Bye." It just doesn't make sense, I think.
Do we think that Jack has issues with his emotions? He probably should have gone to therapy much before because, like how we were saying, he was bottling up his emotions. By
Mhm.
saying, "Oh yes, I was the boy," then he has to acknowledge the emotions, and maybe he wasn't capable of doing that at that moment.
Mm,
Plus, the
maybe.
awkward situation of like, "Oh snap, I'm with this girl's friend." Maybe that was too much for him to overcome.
Yeah, I think it was more like it would have affected his relationship with Sarah. So
Mhm.
he knew he like couldn't go there, but maybe that's because like he did have those feelings for Lori. Because otherwise he could have just said like, "Oh yeah, I did recognize you then," but
It
it
could have
doesn't
been like,
matter. But
yeah. Like, "Oh, hey, weren't you at that one bus stop?" And then just brush it off.
Do
yeah,
we,
Could have been cool about it. But
yeah.
yeah, you're right. He maybe already crazy like Lori, he was already in love.
yeah, yeah. So the fact that he didn't want to talk about it kind of gives it more weight.
Mhm.
Do we think that possibly? I think it mentions it in the book, but I can't remember right now. Do we think that that Jack would rather stay with Sarah so he can at least still kind of be friends with Lori versus like breaking up with Sarah means probably no access to either of them, especially Lori. But I think it wasn't that. It's just something that came to mind. Like maybe he stayed with Sarah to kind of like see something happens. Maybe I end up with Lori after all. You never know. And then that's kind of, over 10 years, they did end up together.
Huh. I'm just thinking like I don't think boys are scheming like that. I feel like are they? I don't think they
I
think
think
too
so.
much into it. Right? Like they're just like I don't want to generalize the thoughts of men or, you know, but I feel like they don't think about stuff like that.
That's true.
Not because they're not intelligent enough to do so. I just feel like we as women are just like, "Oh my gosh, this," and like we plot stuff out, or like we get deep
Oh,
into it.
maybe he was just like more go with the flow and focus on his career, and he was already dating Sarah, so then he was just like comfortable with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how they kept being drawn to each other though, because like how Sarah was like, "Oh, check in with him on his injury," and then when they broke up, "Oh, stay his friend. That's the one thing I ask." And I'm just like, "Oh my god, Lori's never gonna be free of him."
Yeah. And then just also when she was like, "Oh, it was Jack." Like I don't know. I still find it amazing that that was the first person that comes to mind. She's like, "Oh, Jack. That was Busboy." And I'm like,
Yeah,
if you had a little like instinct, why didn't you mention it before?
I
Which
think
goes
she
to
was.
I'll go for it.
Oh no, you please finish first.
I was just gonna say, which goes with the following question after the one you read. Should Sarah have noticed the tension between Lori and Jack? Do you think it was that obvious?
That's what I was. I think Sarah was like slightly more egocentric than Lori. And I think maybe she wouldn't have picked up on it because they were just such best friends and she wanted them to get along at first. So I think she was always seeing it like from her own perspective. And I don't think that she would have thought that like, oh, maybe there's something just because their friendship was so strong already. Um, I think maybe that. But I think what she should have picked up on was that Lori was no longer bringing up like, oh, I'm gonna look for the bus boy. Because since she did spend like a whole year looking for him, I feel like that would have alerted her more than possible tension. I don't know.
Yeah, she never asked until that night.
It's like the worst timing.
that part made me like stressed out because I'm like, no, I don't want them to be fighting my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like Lori was acting weird around Jack, so maybe she thought she doesn't even like him.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying so hard to like hide it.
Yeah, I think that's what I would have picked up on at least, but I think like I sometimes I'm an awkward person with new people, so I think like if that was like for me for example, I would be like, okay, maybe that's like how they normally are. But Lori wasn't. She wasn't really characterized as being super awkward. But I think that that's kind of like how I see things too. So I'm like, oh, this thing would have stood out to me more.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that she's not looking for him anymore.
I think I like your idea that Sarah was very me, that she was so focused on herself and Jack that I guess you could kind of be blinded by other things. Be like, oh no, they're just friends. Oh, she's actually trying to be friends with my friend, or like with my boyfriend.
Mhm.
So I think not unless like if it was a different girl, maybe with that same tension, I feel like she would be like, excuse me. But
Mhm.
I think because it was her best friend, she's like, nah.
Yeah, I think
I
that
just
gave her
wanna
like a different sense of security. Yeah.
Mhm. And it says, is it realistic for Lori and Jack to try to be friends considering their feelings for one another? Why do you think they try so hard to remain friendly?
I feel like if I feel like they maybe would rather have each other as friends than not at all, kind of like what I was saying before. But I think also they know like if they don't talk, like Sarah's like the triangle, right? So they can't like not talk to each other because of Sarah. So they may as well like try to make the best of the situation, be friends is kind of like what I think. That they're both in denial.
Well, they're trying not to hurt other people, aka
Mm,
Sarah. At least in
yeah.
the beginning. I think later on they're just trying to be like, let's not break the dynamic that we already have, where
Mhm.
Sarah is friends with me, and now they're kind of okay with Jack because she has Luke and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's strange, like even how Jack was agreeing to be like Oscar's DJ at the surprise party. And I mean, I'm sure he did it for Lori, but I'm like, I don't know if I would have done that, I would be like, okay, maybe we'll attend or let me help you find someone else, but
Mhm.
I guess he was still dating Sarah then, right? That's like when they started to break up. So maybe that's why, because if the girlfriend was also pressuring him, I don't know. I just feel like it would be uncomfortable.
I think it's kind of weird that like Sarah and Lori, or sorry, Lori and Jack stayed in touch like after he broke up with Sarah. And then they're like, oh, we're such good friends. But I guess Sarah wanted that them to stay
Mhm.
in touch. And it seems like Lori doesn't have many other friends, so it probably was one of her best friends.
That's true. I wonder if Sarah just felt bad because I think that was where when he Jack was at his lowest point, right? Just like
Yeah.
by the accident. I keep forgetting that he lost part of his hearing. They keep mentioning the hearing aid, and I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh, that's right, he had an accident, and like he can't do the one career he wanted. So maybe she just felt bad, and she's like, you know what? You guys were good friends. Maybe I won't be able to talk to him for a while, so you have to be there for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've had a friend so far. Like, I'm trying to think, like, been broken up and have been like really significantly impacted by it. Um, yeah, I must like I can't imagine like how it would be like if you had a friend that they were like very, very in love and then they have like such a strong accident. I haven't lived through that, so I feel like they want to make sure they do the right thing by like checking in on Jack. And with Jack, the one thing I do feel a bit bad about for him is that it doesn't really mention much about like him getting together with his family or anything like that. Like with Sarah, it kind of says like, oh, she went to visit her family.
Yeah.
Lori, like, the main character, we see more of her family and her dad, and we know that she has her brother and the mom, and extended family. We didn't see that for Jack, so I wonder if maybe the gals also wanted to check in on him more because maybe he doesn't have like close family.
I think his parents died, right?
I thought the dad for sure. Did the
Mhm.
mom?
I don't know if I mentioned it or not.
Yeah. I can't remember. But I know for sure the dad, because that's the one thing they were bonding over like immediately. But
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
I think that's why Sarah told Jack to text Lori, right, when her dad died, because his dad had also died, and sometimes it's easier to talk to like people when they've like also gone through a similar thing.
Hmm. They just understand a little better.
And so it's funny, actually, like analyzing it with you guys. It's like Sarah told Lori, "Oh, don't leave Jack alone. Be his friend. That's all I ask." But then later, when Lori's going through something, Sarah also texts Jack, like, "Hey, reach out to Lori." So in a way, she was actually like making sure they were staying connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting. It's like she knew what her role was, introduce them and then step away, but still be like, hey, take care of him. Hey, take
Mm-hmm.
care of her.
Together
It
without
was
her.
cute.
Yeah, so it have to happen that way.
Yeah. Let's see. Which one were we on? How does Lori's relationship with Oscar compare to her relationship with Jack? Is it possible for her to love them both simultaneously?
I think Lori was looking so hard for like her job and what she felt she had to be at, with her career. I think Oscar was an example of like where quote unquote somebody should be by a certain time in their life. And that's why, apart from where she found him in vacation, and people's minds are very different on vacation, I think maybe, she met him at this idealized point in Thailand. And then, he seemed to have his life all together. She probably liked that because
Mm-hmm.
coming off of like the whole Jack situation from the beginning where they kind of, had that falling out, it's like she probably felt like a little bit of a hot mess and she wanted just like a little order in her life, which I think Oscar in a way was able to provide.
I feel like, haven't you also heard that when you're, or when people are on vacation, they like take their best clothes or just in a happier mood than their regular life? So I don't think it's answering the question. It's just more of my thoughts. That it's interesting that that like sure she got super into Oscar and they made it work for a few years or so. But like how much of that was technically real and not just like the not necessarily ecstasy or but like the happiness of being at the trip and always being like, "Oh my gosh, when I'm with him, I get to remember that I was on vacation." And you know what I mean?
Maybe that's why the book made such a big deal about the picture that she gave him for his birthday too, because they're always trying to go back to that, but like their
Yeah.
present isn't.
Yeah.
Sounds like they never even took like a week vacation except our honeymoon. Like, what's the point of working that hard? We can't even spend the money. Get vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. He was such a workaholic.
Yeah.
I didn't I mean, I'm not saying he was I liked him when we got introduced to him, but he wasn't one of my favorite characters.
I think the boys were not that impressive in this book.
No. No. No, they weren't. I'm trying to think who I would call my favorite character. I don't think I have one.
It just makes me nervous. She's like going all in with Jack, and like, is that even gonna work out? Like,
I would make yeah,
Like at the end?
before
well,
making hilarious.
It's like they've been in love with each other, but it's like they haven't like even dated. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think at the end it was like a tiny bit cliche with that. Yeah, because I think like Jack like wronged her in some ways. Like he broke her necklace, he said mean things to her. I don't know. Laurie's really nice. Maybe she's more forgiving than me, but I just feel like that's something that would kind of stay with you for a while, even through like all the happiness as well.
yeah, but I am glad it wasn't like she didn't jump to get back with him like right after the divorce. Like
Hmm.
she took time
Yeah.
to like heal and everything.
Yeah. I liked when he tried to reach out and she's like, I'll call you when I'm ready.
I
And he's like, I'm not that special anymore. I'm not the one to have all the details. And I was like, oh, that must have hurt. I was like, damn, I love it. He's
yeah, I
awesome.
do. Uh, I mean, I like what I liked about Lori is that even though it seemed like she wouldn't stand up for herself at times, like when it mattered, I think she did. Like with a baby or when, Jack was telling her stuff. Or with a mother-in-law too, she's getting a little bit sassy with her. So I'm like, yes.
I think she definitely, I think we see all the characters grow up, but I feel like she had some good development where she wasn't very outspoken in the beginning. I think she was more reserved. And then you can see her being like, no. I think it was that one trip where she took to the Tahiti. And she's like, yeah, it changed her. That's kind of nice. So I guess I'll pick her as
Yeah,
my.
she was kind of like the side. She was like the sidekick, and then she became the main character.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Like even though she was introduced as the main character, she like Sarah was just taking up the whole, like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. He's like, she looked good and I looked okay, you know?
Uh, I bet the author did that on purpose because even in Sarah's descriptions at the beginning when they're still roommates, it's like, oh, Sarah stole the show. Oh, Sarah was wearing this thing and she looks so beautiful. And it never like describes Lori as that. In fact, like Jack even says, oh, she looks like a Parisian waif, which is basically like a street urchin or orphan. So I'm like, okay, that's not nice.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I do think she really like changed and came into her
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
in the book. Yeah, blossomed is a perfect word. But I think she also kind of had to break off on her own, right? Because like when she wasn't with Sarah as roommates anymore, that's when all those things started happening. So it's just yeah, coming of age.
On page 209, Lori notes that she's been conflicted about how much information constitutes the truth, how much omission constitutes lying. Do you think she's lying to Oscar and or Sarah, considering what she hasn't revealed to each of them? Omitting
That's tough.
information is lying?
I think if you consider lying by omission lying, then yes, she is definitely lying. It's definitely a pickle because it's not like just a white lie. I know she's trying to like not hurt anyone's feelings, but that
Mm-hmm.
was I don't know how to answer that one.
Or it's like they were emotionally kind of cheating on her, but I
Mhm.
mean it wasn't like all the time, but like that one night when Lori and Jack were like shopping for her
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know.
I just feel like if you're holding back the truth, I don't call it lying, but why are you holding back?
There's a
If you're
reason.
with this person and you're supposed to be very honest, once again, I don't call it lying, but why don't you trust them? Like that already just seems bad.
Mhm.
Omitting information is just like, why are you doing it? You got to really think about it. And if you can't tell them, then that's a problem.
With her omitting information from Sarah, I feel like it's because she doesn't want to lose the relationship with Sarah. with Oscar, I feel like she doesn't want to lose the relationship with Jack because Oscar might be like, okay, you can't see him anymore or something silly.
Yeah.
I don't think she really cared about Oscar that much to protect her feelings, his feelings. It was more like, oh, he can't find out because then like something else is going to happen.
I'm not
I
gonna
feel
be
like,
able to see him, and because towards the end, I think Oscar would definitely be the type who's like, you can't see him.
yeah, like he could have turned bad for all you know, especially with his mother being the way she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think she is lying to them, but like for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar might have told Sarah if he found out, maybe she didn't, maybe like deep down she didn't trust him fully enough to even confide that in him. So she was like, okay, better that he doesn't know at all. I think.
Yeah.
It's just so hard. There's like never gonna be a good time to tell her that. And like
Mm-mm.
I think she was just kind of hoping she'd get away with it,
Yeah.
or like she already knew, or I don't know.
Mm, yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah, because in any moment it would have like it yes, they came back and everything is fine, but I feel like they would still have had that moment. If they had said it earlier, they would have that like broken little relationship for that time or broken friendship. So yeah, I feel like you couldn't avoid not like having that big old obstacle or like that fight, that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything can be rainbows and butterflies and happiness. So that was their one issue, I think.
The funny thing is, like, Lori never officially told Oscar, right? It was like he kind of got a harder clue about it when Jack was like, yes, I have feelings for your wife. you know? And then it's like the whole baby
Right.
thing was happening, but they never actually like discussed it more like her and Sarah did, which I think
Yeah.
like they didn't really care about him that much.
Yeah.
It was the thing that instigated their breakup, and I'm sure, the Jack thing added to it. Maybe in their fictional world they had conversations we don't know about, but I think it was more that she felt like forced into a corner and she was like, no, I don't
Mhm.
want it. But maybe we also didn't see that because the author doesn't think Oscar is as important, just like we don't think he's as good as some of the other characters.
Also true.
Do you want me to read question 9?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Laurie describes the flowers Jack sends her as lush and extravagant, but then in the shortest time, they're not very lovely at all. They wilt and they turn the water brown, and soon you can't hold on to them any longer. Do any of her relationships also fit this description?
Yes. Oscar.
Oscar?
Yeah. Yeah. Lush and extravagant when they're on vacation and then when they come back. And then
Mm-hmm.
it wilts and they turn water brown and soon you can't hold on to them any longer, which is I think what happened when he just wouldn't get breaks from his work and he was only thinking of himself. And even though they said, "Oh, we're not gonna let work or something get in between our marriage," and he let that happen, and that's
Yeah.
what turned Water Brown
Yeah, I
and
think she was hoping to like recapture that
mhm,
carefree life with him, but it just kept getting less carefree.
mhm,
Yeah. I think too, could be like her relationship with Jack at the beginning. Like the friendship like seemed okay at first, but then they couldn't overcome like the other feelings. So then that like kind of burned down too, even though they still had to talk to each other for different reasons. But then later, like that one was resurrected. But I think it's definitely more like an Oscar comparison.
oh yeah, I can see that with Jack, where they first initially saw each other, but then
Mhm.
in the shortest time, they're not very lovely at all because of that whole Sarah and Jack conflict, and then it
Mhm.
just like maybe she becomes the more of the flower that wilts and turns water brown because she's not in a happy moment That's like right before she goes on vacation.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was seeing it. The way I see it is like she kind of like she's like in one batch of flowers. She's one batch of flowers with Jack, and then like Wilson dies, and then she comes back from vacation, and more things happen. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
she goes through cycles of wilting and dying, but then at the end, that's like when it's a fresh batch of flowers, and that's the one that's going to stay lush and extravagant because they're finally both at a point in their lives where they can like be together. But yeah. I still can't get over the mother-in-law like inviting Cressida or being like, "Oh, Cressida's working with Oscar." I did not like that lady.
And then when Crescent is the one who said, "Oh, Oscar's mom doesn't like flowers on the table" or something like that, right? Like, girl, we get it. You're the ex, and you probably know this, but it's not your place anymore. And it's not. She was not trying to help out Lori. She was
No,
pretty
she
much
was thinking,
saying like, "I know more than you." You know, that's snobby.
no, that was off. All right, question 10 says, how does Lori cope with loss in terms of family members, romantic interests, and friends? I think she always
What
has.
is Lori?
Oh, yeah. I'll read it again. How does Lori cope with loss in terms of family members, romantic interests, and friends?
I say she just calls Jack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my gosh, Julie, that was funny.
Jack. You're right.
I was
Except in the end, she did not.
called
'Cause she
tax.
knew.
I think she's kind of regretful in some things. Like when her dad died, she was like, "Oh, my New Year's resolution before was to spend more time with my parents, and now it's too late."
Mhm.
And then with Sarah, she's like, "Oh, she's moving so far away to Australia. What am I gonna do?" It's just like a lot of like internal processing. And then with Jack, super angsty, of course. And then with Oscar, I think just like a lot of like feeling a need to escape. So for that one, I think it was different. And she's very well. I think that her and Sarah are both very nostalgic, like how they always make the sandwiches when they're together. So they're always like kind of like how Lori and Oscar are reaching back for Thailand, I think, but this is in a more positive way. Like Sarah and Lori are reaching back to like when they were roommates and in a more healthy way, like, making new nice memories as well. Which is interesting that this book covers like so much of a time span, but then they're also always like reaching back to the past.
Yeah.
All right, question 11 says, by the end of the story, both Lori and Jack have grown and changed significantly. How do these changes affect their relationship?
I think they're both a little bit more mature. Well, we already said how Lori evolved,
Mm-hmm.
blossomed. Jack, I feel like he didn't change too much. I feel like he's still kind of down and depressing and not that you can't be like that and still, change or grow and evolve, but it just seems like he hasn't gone through much yet, or not necessarily gone through much, but he hasn't really changed too much.
Like there's not a super big maturity there. For
Yeah.
Jack, I'm finding it interesting that I feel like the girls in the book were telling him what to do and he'd kind of like just go along with it in a way. Even like Amanda, how she was saying, "Yo, proposed to me already," and Verity, like, oh, okay, like, it's always gonna be like you're thinking of these other two girls. And then with Sarah, I think she was definitely like more like a little bossy, so she was telling him what to do. And then with Lori, even though I think he was the rudest to her, like she well, she didn't really try to tell him what to do, I guess, except for that last scene where they broke the necklace. But I just feel like he's kind of like bouncing around, I
Mhm.
agree with you. We didn't see as much of an evolution with him as we did some of the other characters.
Not to say that like Lori is now stable, but I feel like she's a
Mhm.
little more stable than she was in the beginning of the story. And I feel like Jack is still kind of fluctuating, trying to find his ground
Hmm.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he matured a little bit. So I think that may have helped the relationship. At least him seeing one, he didn't get Sarah, and then two, he kept seeing Lori with Oscar and be like, shoot, like now I can't have her at all. And I hate this and my feelings and ugh. Yeah.
And he had to go through a lot of more like less serious relationships to kind of figure out like, okay, Lori is really, really the one I want versus Lori kind of always knew, even though she was with Oscar. So I find that interesting. Like he doesn't know himself as well as Lori grows to know herself.
And I think that question ties with the last question. How do Lori's New Year's resolutions evolve through the years?
She focuses more on things that affect her, like her family, her job, versus like, oh, I'm gonna find best boy and all these amazing things are gonna happen. It's like more well grounded and less idealistic, I think. Although it's still a little idealistic, but in a good way, I think.
They used to be like really concrete, like find best boy, and then wasn't her last one like just live or
I think
like be
To never ever
happy?
choose my best friend's boyfriend ever again. In fact, I'm never going to allow even one errant thought about him to enter my head. I'm putting all unplatonic thoughts of Jack O'Mara into a crate, sealing it with bright yellow toxic stickers, and chucking it into the hinterland at the back of my head. They were more centered around Jack, and she didn't have him. And in the second half of the book, they're less centered around Jack, but eventually she gets him. So moral of the story is like girls should focus on themselves.
yeah.
I
Love
really
those
like
signs.
I really liked the resolutions. I thought that was just cute. And
I
I looked forward to them every year change.
Yeah, and I think it's so nice because one, we're in December and we're about to hit the resolution, era. Whether we do them or whether we stick to them, whether, you know, we participate or not, like I just think it's kind of nice because I feel like you can feel like it happening. Like when was it? December 23rd? I don't know.
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, that could have been like a few days ago." Like I feel like I'm just way more in the book.
It was perfect, yeah.
Yeah. Gives me ideas. Do I want to copy her in some ways in resolutions or be like, that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm gonna think about. No,
Yeah.
kind of. I feel like it was perfect to end the year.
I really liked it too for a year, and you did a very good job, Julie.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it because I had doubts. I told Paola because I'm like, maybe just don't read it. It's kind of depressing.
I feel so. I think me and you, Julie, have around the same taste. So like this could be cringy and be like, oh God, but I like that. Even though it's like other people could be like, that was not very great, or it was very cliche, or we knew they were gonna end up together. I still like it. I still like
Yeah, it wasn't like
cringy
cliche.
romance
It was just kind of sad. I don't know.
rom-coms.
I feel sad about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what ratings would you ladies give it?
Let me see.
So I read half and I listened to half, and I've noticed that when I listen to it, it does change. I was thinking 3.75 to a 4. I think I would give it a 4 if I read the whole thing
Hmm.
and not listen to it. Because I mean, the listening was fun, but I think it's better when you're just like, oh my God. So
I rated it at 5 apparently on Goodreads right when I finished. I think it's more like a 4 or 5 for me, like 4.5. I liked that it was like pretty unique in the style it was written, like the with the resolutions and the dates, and I was very intrigued by how it was spanned over 10 years specifically because I feel like, it just allowed for a lot of change in the characters. I felt like there was good characterization, especially of Lori, and I liked kind of being in her head. Um, and the conflicts within the four characters like was enough to keep me pretty intrigued, wanting to come back to read it. So I think like, that was pretty unique. And that's why I rated it higher.
What do you give it, Julie?
I'll give it a 3.75. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a 4.
But see, that's how
Like
I feel.
yeah, like a 3.8. I think I would. I mean, I don't know. It's a good book. Like
Mhm,
it's a quick read.
mhm.
Like yeah, it keeps you entertained, but it's kind of sad. And you kind of know what's gonna happen. So it wasn't like life changing where
Mhm.
I wouldn't be like, oh, you have to read this book. It's so good. But it wasn't like weird like some of the other books we've read are weird where even though I liked it, like I wouldn't recommend it because it's weird.
That's
But this
funny.
one, like you can recommend this one. Like
I
it's like lots of people would like it.
Yeah, and I think it could be a quick read where let's say you're at a reading slump, this could probably help you to get out of it maybe. Just because I feel like it's a little angsty, not too much. I feel like there's a little enough for you to be like, "Wait, what? What's gonna happen next?"
Yes, exactly. Good balance between like the angst and the humor. I think that's what I really liked
Yeah.
about it.
Mhm.
Because there were some really funny parts in it, like, just like how cute Sarah and Lori were together when they were friends, or how, I think Lori um kind of like describes herself. Like I think like that's very relatable, and also sometimes a little funny. Um, and just like her interactions with other people, like the mother-in-law, I found amusing. Did you get any other ratings from people, Judith?
No, I only so Darlene didn't finish, and I think neither did Crystal. Crystal was moving, so I think
Mm,
that's why she didn't.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, "Was it good? Should I finish it?" And I was like, "Yeah." Towards the end, it got cutesy. So
I think, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like towards the end though, like it remained like at a stable
Mhm.
pace, and then towards the end, didn't it feel kind of like, "Whoop, quick, we're moving on. There's a radio show, and now I'm talking to Jack, and now I gotta go find him." And or was it just me?
A little, yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that.
I don't know, but I like it. I like it.
I like. I think it would make like a cute movie, just like The Holiday and stuff like that.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to. Hmm. Let's see. One day in December. That's not true. Is it really a movie? Shut up.
Wait, is it? I'll watch
Oh
it.
no. No, it's not. Fan made book trailer. Oh my gosh, I love when they do this.
Oh, Judith, who pitched the A Court of Thorn and Roses book? I was curious.
Julie did.
Oh, Julie, I've read the entire series and they're hella
Yeah.
good. I requested them all in hardback for Christmas actually, and it's rare that I buy books to keep now besides like book club. Um, I really like fantasy, and I've been on a fantasy like binge recently because I found another series. It's not as good as A Court of Thorns and Roses. But I'm still like really intrigued, and I forgot how much I like fantasy.
So we should read it.
Yeah.
I recommend it. Yeah, well, there was that sale at Barnes and Noble, and I told Rico like, let's go to Barnes and Noble today. But there's little signs at Barnes and Nobles, and it says like, when they're gone, they're gone, and it's true. The books I wanted were not there in hardback. So, I mean, I didn't get the Ikutar series, but if you read the books, then if you look at like BookTok, there's so many funny memes and videos about it. It's just really good. If you like that kind of thing.
Yeah, Katie had read it also, but I've seen like a lot of people post about it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
pretty trendy.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, for I
It's on
binge
my
read it.
list to read.
Or add it to
Yeah,
the list.
it's a good like it's a good series to get lost in. I think most of them are good. You know, sometimes sequels are not as good, and the characters, like, you do grow to really like them, and there's a lot of good plot twists.
Yeah, I'm excited to do fantasy or whatever next because it's like a little bit lighter and like I don't know. Usually the discussions like because it's like a lot about like the world's different, not as much so much drama.
Yeah. The the book Before the Coffee Gets Cold, it beat by 1 point Katie's book, the winter one.
Wait. Oh yeah, I saw that whenever.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought the Winter's Promise or something. I think that's what it's called.
Mhm.
Winter something. I thought it was gonna win. And then I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh. But
The Croc-
this one is only 200 pages. So like
Oh.
214. It's kind of
Mhm.
short. So we could do January has, I was gonna say 5 months. Oh my God.
That'd be
5 weeks. It has 5 weeks. So I was thinking we could either separate into 5 or separate into 4 and pick like a day off if we want.
okay.
What do you guys feel? Corinne, I know your birthday is next week on our
I'm gonna be going to work.
Yeah,
Wednesday. What happened?
I think just 4 is good. 'Cause
Right?
otherwise it'll be super short.
Yeah, exactly. It was gonna be like 40 pages. And that's kind of weird to be like, boop, 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 what? And you just break off
Yeah,
too quick.
I think a gap week maybe this first week because it's like New Year's and stuff. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna do anything for my birthday, but
Yeah, I was like, your birthday's like right there, so you can have it off.
oh, okay, thank you.
And that will
Yeah,
give me time to go find the book. Because I got the Kindle version, but I prefer the actual book.
mhm. Well, the paperback one is more expensive than the hardback on Amazon, I think, which I thought was weird.
Huh.
But I wasn't sure how fast it would come or not, so I ended up getting the paperback one. But it's okay, I don't mind. But yeah, no, I'm excited to read this one too.
So it'll be the first section won't be next week. It'll be the 10th. So you have a
Mhm.
little break. And let me see how the chapters are. Ooh, the lovers. I think. Oh, the chapters are a little weird. Oh, well, it says part 1 is the lovers. It says I. And then I think the second part is husband and wife. So I guess it's just the first part. It should
Okay.
be around 57 pages just because it's like I didn't want to go in between the story.
No, yeah, I like that better. Yeah.
Okay. So just read all of, once you have the book, if you already have it, read all of the lovers and then don't read husband and wife, which should be the first section. Don't read the second section.
Oh, that's easy enough. Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. Have a wonderful New Year. Have a happy, happy birthday, Karina. Enjoy your
Yeah.
time off. And hope you feel
Yes,
better,
happy
Julie.
birthday.
Yes.
Thank you. I think I'm almost better.
Oh,
We'll see how I feel tomorrow.
I feel like
Good
everyone right
night.
now is like sick. Horrible.
Yeah, this is like I've never had anything like this. It's
Mm,
bad. But I think I'm getting better.
that's good. Okay, well, have a good night, ladies. Thank
Good
you for joining
night.
us. Bye.
Next time.